Hey there, I'm Pablo Ral, a ski mountaineering coach, and welcome to the Global Skimo YouTube channel. Today I'm here to show you the different types of brakes we can use in Skimo. Check out the features of each one so you can decide which suits your skiing best and make that choice. I'm going to keep talking to you as I progress from those more automatic or automated brakes, where we'll have to make fewer gestures. And little by little, we'll move to more manual systems where we'll have to press buttons, make turns, and they'll be slightly less convenient. They're also usually more affordable. Let's start with the competition brake, this masterpiece made by ATK that is revolutionizing the market. Practically all World Cup athletes are switching to this system as it is mandated by international regulations. And it's the system that affects you the least when making transitions and is the fastest. This system is as simple as having an internal cable, so when we leave the cover of the binding, the brake automatically activates, ensuring our ski never goes away. And with this small lever, when our boot enters the binding, it will keep the brake pressed, but in case of a fall and the ski doesn't release, it will activate again, and when picking up the brake to make an ascent, we'd have to make this gesture of closing the cover. Well, by making that gesture directly, the cable pulls the brake and leaves it raised, so it doesn't really require any extra gestures when handling the material. We just have to worry. To lift the cover and close it again, it's true that the cover is a bit harder than a conventional binding, but for this new year, all bindings come with springs at the back, which also help with the rebound of the binding, and most importantly, when pulling it back. Also, the innovation this year is that this brake isn't just on the Revolution binding, the top of the line and lightest competition model, but they've also included this system in both the World Cup and the trophy. The next system I want to talk to you about seeks to achieve precisely what we discussed with this competition binding, but adapted for touring. And it's that idea of not having to make more movements, that just with our usual handling of our binding, the brake already works accordingly. And that's solved by incorporating it into the toe piece. So when we insert the boot and lift the lever to lock the binding, the brake automatically lifts. And when we take off the ski, the brake is automatically active. The only disadvantage I see with this binding is that the fact that the brake is in the front part can mean that if the waist of our ski, it doesn't quite match the width of the brake and sticks out a bit, it's easier that when we're switching, we get one brake caught with the other. Even in conversions or kick turns, it gives us a bit more trouble. And another disadvantage of this system is that the binding adds a lot more weight compared to other solutions we will see next. We keep moving forward. And now we come to this brake with the Evo system. It's an almost automatic system, but what I like the most is that it's designed, or at least that's how I see it, to get rid of issues like ice and freezing, which are ultimately the main problems with mountain skiing brakes. Yes, everything works fine here in the room, but then we go to the mountains, there is ice, it gets into little gaps, and the system starts having a harder time. Often it's hard to turn it, hard to lift the tab and lock the binding. All right, so this Evo system that I'm going to talk to you about now has the entire internal system inside the binding, away from ice. and those external elements that could block the binding and cause us problems. Therefore, the only thing that activates the brake is turning the heel piece, but there's no tab, no button, it's just a rotation. The binding goes into ski mode, and when we put our boot in, the brake will be active, so that if it releases, the brake for hours here. And when going up, it's not necessary to keep pressing the brake while we rotate. Instead, we will turn the heel piece and put it in ascent mode. And just by pressing the brake afterwards, it automatically locks, so it doesn't bother us, and we can use our lift freely. And after the model, as you have seen, quite automated as well, we move on to this last one, in which we do have a button. It is a lighter system than this front one. It is quite simple, but it does require a button. A couple of extra steps when making our transitions. It's not like we talked about before with the same movement we'd make. We now have to take an extra few steps. Right now, we have the brake in climb mode completely locked. We would use the binding as it is. And when it's time to go downhill, we would need to press this little button. So the brake stays active and logically lift the cover. We would press, and just like the other one, in case our boot releases, it would stay active, and when storing it, 2 actions are required. First, press the button, and while holding it down, lowering the brake and releasing it will lock it completely. Disadvantage of this system, as I mentioned, the fact that there's a button, the fact that we need to step on it while pressing, can be tricky in the mountains if there's ice or if our hands are cold. And logically, the second disadvantage, where the rest of the bindings I've talked about win, is having to take an extra step and not just being able to, we lift the cover, but we have to be mindful of activating and deactivating the brake. If you still have any doubts, if you're wondering if the brake is really for you, or if it would be better to use a leash or a binding without a brake, I have a video here where I discuss this topic. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and you're a fan of ski mountaineering. See you soon with another video. Goodbye.